It's another week in the For Your Reference household, and it is another 7 screeners worth of Reference Max.
Woohoo!
We're going to ride it and snap it off.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get on with the show. Friends and lovers, and welcome back to another Reference Max, where we cover the screenings and the screeners that we've been watching. With your host Katie
And OT.
On the docket, we have 7 again, OT. Mostly everything has been released, aside from one that is coming out very, very soon. We will be covering Mafia Mama, A Black Lady Sketch Show, Totally Completely Fine, Fired on Mars, Mrs. Davis, Love and Death. Ooh, the Plemons. Are you ready for the Plemons, OT?
I am.
Plemonade. That's what I've been blasting.
Wow.
And Evil Dead Rise. Ooh. How are you feeling, OT?
Good. I'm hyped for this.
Oh, super hyped. So we are going to be starting off with Mafia Mama. Thank you to Maddie and the team at Paramount for inviting us. Unfortunately, our executive dog producer was not well, so OT wasn't able to come. So I took one for the team.
Oh, I took one for the team.
I did take one for the team. I think it was literally a previous Reference Max where I was talking about old mate Rusty on his Vespa. You know, I had back-to-back screenings of Australians playing Italians. Super talented, but you know, we know where the birth certificates are, OT. So this is Mafia Mama, the ever-loved, ever-lauded Toni Collette. I am a bit worried. No, Sixth Sense. Okay, so this isn't the first official time we're talking about Toni Collette on the podcast. We do have Sixth Sense. Go and check it out, friends and lovers. I guess just rounding out general sort of information. Wow, I didn't even realize this until I saw the credits at the end of this screening. This was directed from Catherine Hardwicke.
Oh, yeah?
And that name should be familiar to you because it is one of the most prized recordings of this For Your Reference podcast. She directed the first Twilight film.
As you can see, it's stuck with me.
Well, you know, I did say that the first Twilight really captured the nerdy, moody sort of atmosphere that the Twilight books, you know, evoked into my life. So it was very interesting that I saw her name in the end credits and I'm like, is there another Catherine Hardwicke? Anyway, in regards to writers, we have J. Michael Fieldman, Debbie John, as well as Amanda Sithers. In regards to stars, I already said Toni Collette, Monica Bellucci, as well as Alonso Perugino. This was released, obviously, recently in April of 2023. This is her Kelly Rowland seat filler.
Wow, you mean a hit?
Wow. Well, I would feel like you wouldn't say any of Kelly Rowland's roles weren't a hit. But I think this film was effective to its demographic. You know, I don't like to proclaim that films that aren't necessarily targeted to you don't need to do the work in getting you emotionally invested. However, it was very clear that there was a demographic for this film, and it was people that have lived, you know, chapters of their lives and potentially neglected their own life and their own motivations and their own sense of self. And perhaps the other films that they enjoy are the Magic Mike series.
Wow.
Eat, Pray, Love.
Okay, that's interesting. So in this, I take that Toni Collette is the Mafia Mama in question.
Yes, and I don't think that's a spoiler as well. Because it's one of those things of, and I'm sure a lot of producers and maybe even Nick Cage, the OG Coppola of it all, I'm sure that's how they work. They want to get Nick Cage or they want to get Toni Collette in a situation. So they want her to be the mafia mama. So they work backwards on trying to get that story there. I think a lot of the time for these sorts of films, the plot isn't as important as getting to the salacious sort of moments that we would have Toni Collette in. However, there was such a focus on the actions, the roll in the hay trysts that that her character would want to explore. It was definitely more of a fantasy feeling for those that have put their lives aside for other people to enjoy themselves.
Okay, that sounds interesting. So there aren't any moments of hijinks where you thought, oh, like with our old Rusty, you enjoyed him on his Vespa.
Oh man! But you know what's really interesting? Because I was very confused the whole time watching The Pope's Exorcist. I was very confused, but talking about it with you, I was like, hey, I think I actually really enjoyed it. I don't know if that's going to happen with Mafia Mama. But also at the same time, it's the same thing, like I said, with Kate Blanchett. Like, she's always going to bring quality. Toni Collette, because I very recently watched Muriel's Wedding, I understood the notes of her being a comedic sort of actress and knowing that she's got that gravitas as well. But I'm definitely not going to hold this against her, This film, also her best friend was black, and she said all of the stereotypical, like even to the point where they were in like a yoga sort of setting, and she's like, you need to eat, pray, fuck, eat, pray, fuck. Really? And the crowd was eating it up. I don't know. Like in the 2020s, do we still need the black best friend to say those things that make people laugh in the cinema?
Was that only value in the show, in the movie though? Just that? Yeah.
She also, we see her later on in the film. This isn't a spoiler, but it just further exemplifies how she had such a small platform of character. Like, you see her later on in the courtroom, and she literally, to like an opera sort of effect, talks about the guy being a dick.
All right. I think I get the picture of the movie now.
Yeah. There's obviously a lot of like Italian sort of stereotypes and that sort of thing as well. They also reference The Godfather a lot. And I'm like, you have no business referencing The Godfather as well. Yeah, I can see how people could enjoy it, but personally,
it wasn't for you.
Yeah, I was just thinking about how you were doing at home with our beautiful, lovely greyhound. Yeah, so that was Mafia Mama. I think the best way to move on is just as much hijinks in sketch form.
Woohoo!
Yes. Thank you for the team at Binge for giving us access to the whole season of a Black Lady sketch show. Love splooshes forever in our celestial kingdoms. Robin Thede, Gabrielle Dennis, who we're also seeing in Big Door Prize.
We are. We love Gabrielle Dennis.
Yeah. Sky Townsend. And we have new cast in the ensemble. Demaya Gurley, Tamara Jade, as well as Angela Lakita Moore.
It was wild seeing Angel there.
Yeah, so good.
What can I say? The fourth season in, going strong as ever.
Uh-huh.
I love the platform that Robin Thede has set out.
Yep.
And with an ever-expanding cast.
Uh-huh.
And I think this is what I appreciate about Robin and what she's doing in the industry. Mm-hmm. She has a lot of fasts in her repertoire, but she doesn't want to be the only one.
Yes.
And that's really important. So with the Black Lady sketch show, I remember us just binging it all and enjoying every single moment. I think my favorite character in this is Professor Hadassah.
Yeah. Oti, are you also from Afro-Latinia?
Of course I am.
I absolutely agree with you. Like, if we can sploosh ourselves so wankily, it is so nice to be able to get screeners for shows that we've already loved and we've watched for years.
Yeah, and Robin doesn't disappoint in this.
No?
Like I said, we don't get to see Ashley Nicole Black in this season.
Or Quinta Brunson, but that's been a couple of seasons now.
But you know what? If they're getting work out there and new projects, that's all good,
There were some standout sketches in this season, and I really appreciated how there were callbacks from previous seasons as well, along with the guest stars. Are you kidding me?
Oh, yeah. They have heaps of guest stars in this.
I just I don't know. Sometimes the sketches come out of nowhere, or sometimes they work from the start. That Amarian sketch, and he's obviously been in a Black Lady sketch show before, but the shine didn't disappear, just like him eating the watermelon in Versus. Friends and lovers, we know you're here specifically for a Black Lady sketch show if you understood that reference. But there were some beautiful, beautiful, muy caliente moments in this season.
We also get to see Coleman Domingo.
Yeah, how do your Domingos swing, OT?
They just hang. But wow, I think with the ensemble cast and just you could tell the writer's room is expanding as well.
Oh, yeah.
And that's good to see.
And, even I think it was on The Daily Show when Robin Thede with Roy Wood Jr., right? She was talking about everywhere, OG comics on the road, or even from TikTok to YouTube. We're seeing a lot of comedians that we saw come up through All Def Digital, Angel as well. Tahir was here. Kev was here as well. There was such a beauty and a celebration of Black talent, and also centering Black women.
Yeah. We don't get to see just the Black people in Hollywood that are already established that are just injected back into the show, because that's not how it works and how it should work. Mm-hmm. Since this is the year of sketch comedy, with History of the World Part 2 also coming out earlier this year.
Yeah. Jay Ellis is Jesus in there. Jay Ellis was also in the Jesus setting, but he wasn't Jesus here. Yeah. Oh, friends and lovers, watching on a week-to-week basis is a lot of fun, but also being able to binge it all was a lot of fun as well. I think part of the fun is also revealing that there are some great, great juicy cameos that we're definitely not gonna spoil, but we would really love to, have a little giggle, gaggle, and banter about it. So it's going to be fun rolling out throughout the weeks as well.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on. The next show that we had access to was Totally Completely Fine. Thank you to our friends at Stan. Totally Completely Fine is an Aussie drama. Thomas and Mackenzie, and I would say her Aussie accent is very on point. 5 out of $5 dues.
Oui, hey, similar to mine, I'd say.
I love your many other talents. I love your many other talents. So this is an original Stan show from creator Gretel Vella. We have, again, Thomas and Mackenzie starring in the role. This show pretty much follows a very young woman navigating the fact that she had just been given inheritance of a whole property compared to her two other brothers. And, the classic sort of formula, one brother is very much, as the wind blows, and the other brother is, I wouldn't say uptight, but he is the one that's crossing the T's and dotting the I's.
Yeah. And sometimes they come across as being hateful or not being... there's nothing wrong with crossing the T's.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right? Because I completely, because there's this opening scene, I'm not going to spoil anything, but where you're like, I can see why he's saying that and it completely makes sense. Mm-hmm. But then again, TV.
Yeah, because we had so many screeners and screenings, a very good problem to have. But because we had so many, we didn't get a chance to get through a lot of the episodes. But just generally, what were your thoughts on this show? I guess I can go first. Personally, I kind of found it hard to latch on to Viv's character, so Thomas and Mackenzie's character, Vivian. I don't know, I am very comfortable in being in the uncomfortable, which I think we talked about recently in the Tar episode. I'm okay to go to those dark and sad sort of places, but it was very hard for me to find where we were working towards, in the small amount of episodes we were able to watch.
I get that. Again, I think I shared a similar sentiment to you in that whilst I could see how she is depressed.
Yeah.
And she has to work that
Depressed
out.
or grief? Or both?
I think I'd say both, because even before the grief, there was some semblance or some showing of depression going on.
Yeah.
And
she was painted to be the unreliable sibling or friend or family member.
Righto. And we all deal with this stuff differently.
Yeah.
And I think the journey Viv takes and, you know, the interactions between her and the siblings as well.
Yeah.
I could definitely empathize with a bit of what she was going on, you know, but there was still a disconnect for me in trying to fully engulf myself in her character or her journey in this show.
Yep.
That made it a bit harder to just latch on to it that much.
Yeah, I think if we're talking about the selection, whether it be film or television, there's a lot of quality, but there's also a lot of just general sort of quantity out there, and the ability to be able to strike the balance of grief as well as levity we're seeing more of that, which is great, but it also means it's a lot more difficult to latch on to shows that don't immediately provide that sort of not provide it immediately, but give us that sort of essence that it's there.
Yeah, 100%. And it's not easy feat dealing with those heavy subjects and topic matter. But I think they do quite well in trying to show exactly how, you know, people go through depression and grief.
Yeah.
And that comes out clearly. So kudos to them.
Yeah. So let's move on. We have watched a good chunk of these, but given the nature of, I don't even know how much we can, you know, meaningfully discuss. We are talking about Mrs. Davis. Thank you to the team at Binge for giving us screeners. There was a 4-episode drop, but even in that, there's a lot that happens outside. So even our non-spoiler talk is only really going to be tap dancing around the first 4 episodes, nowhere near the end of the show. So, you know, we've got Lindelof at the wheel, at the helm. We've also got Betty Gilpin. We've got a lot of time for Betty Gilpin in the For Your Reference household. Go and check out The Hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very deep into the pandemies.
Yeah.
In the pangolin. Yeah, in the pangolin palomas.
And Glow, because we don't do references here. She was really good in Glow.
She did, yeah. So this show is out again, a 4-episode drop. Tara Hernandez as well, executive produced. We've got Betty Gilpin, as well as a lot of beautiful cast. It just happens to be David Arquette at the start of it. He's the one that did that documentary about wrestling, right?
Yeah.
Pass.
We love David Arquette in this household. Come on now.
We've got a lot of stuff to not discuss. Elizabeth Marvel, Andy McQueen, Ben Chaplin, Margot Martingale, Katja Herbers, Tres Más, Chris Diamantopoulos, Ashley Romans, Tom Washila, as well as Mathilde Olivier. What can we say without saying anything, Oti?
What a cast. Again, the concept felt quite unique. I think the pilot was such a starring point for me where I could see the possibilities of where this was going.
Yeah.
I love the concept. You know, with the talk of AI and the consequences of that, seeing it sort of imposed into this show felt unique in how they implemented it. But yeah, like the performances of Betty Gilpin and trying to navigate this journey and trying to choose a side is quite intriguing and interesting because it gives us a bit of suspense, intrigue, philosophical questions of which side you choose as well.
Hey.
But wow, I was pretty taken aback by I think with the first 4 episodes you'll get a good picture and understanding of what the show would be.
Yeah.
And after that, it's just a roller coaster of enjoyment.
Oh, I absolutely agree. Mrs. Davis straddles the 2 worlds of truth. Whether it be religion or replacing it with technology, it can make as much sense as a nun on a motorbike.
And those are the best kind of nuns you can have.
Oh my. it felt adjacent to American Gods. You know, I've got a lot of time in my heart for that show, especially Bill Quist. But even just the exploring of, you know, new media, old media, that sort of thing. I think this is a great way to explore, you know, not to take penmanship away for another, but like if Gaiman were to dabble and you had a Lindelof baby, this is kind of what this show would be.
Okay, I'm mad at that. I think if the comparison would hold true, I'd say it's when Anansi was still in the show. Other than that, then...
That's not Mrs. Davis, that's Mr. Oti. Mr. Oti and his fantastical Anansi adventures.
Oh, look at that. We could definitely write something on that.
For those that haven't watched the show and aren't sure on the ambiguity, or you've watched an episode or two and you're not sure on the ambiguity, I would say trust in the care of the cast and crew.
Because it does take some twists and turns that you didn't expect, at least for me. And that only makes the show better, because 1 minute you think you figured it out, the next minute, nah. Back to the drawing board.
And I think, you know, I'm a very literal person, you know, even on the podcast of things we review. If I can't tangibly feel or resonate with something, I find it hard to connect. So this is on my journey of trying to stretch and expand myself on what I'm used to by default connecting to, and just allowing the show to take me wherever it wants to go. Yeehaw! Do you want the show to take you out of this world, OT?
Yes, please.
Well, get on board. We're covering Fired on Mars.
Whoa.
Yes. Thank you again to Binge for giving us access to these screeners. This is an animated show created by Nate Sherman as well as Nick Vokey. In regards to cast, we have Luke Wilson, Tim Heidecker, Pamela Adlon, and a whole bunch of other peeps. Essentially, this show is kind of if Jerry from Rick and Morty had his own show. And that is as much of a compliment or a comment as someone could ever say.
Bruh.
You know when you see Jerry and he gets ejected into another galaxy and they cut scene to something more interesting? This is where they stay.
Wow. What can I even add to that?
Yeah, you don't need a telescope to deduce what I'm saying.
You got games, man.
Well, your laughter is agreeance unless you're going to say otherwise, sir.
Well, usually I try not to judge a show with its pilot or even 2-3 episodes in.
Yeah.
Before I know where the show is going. But wow, I think we were hit by the tonality quite quickly.
The mundanity? The monotony? What was that guy's name in Office Space? Milton?
Yeah, this is the Milton of shows.
Yeah.
No, like it's weird because I thought the concept was quite solid and I wanted it to be a bit more bitey, but it felt like there was sort of a disconnect where it didn't feel quite as engaging as it ought to be.
Yeah.
I don't know if it wasn't it was too PG.
You know why. You know why. It's in the synopsis, or even if you've watched the trailer, friends and lovers, if you haven't watched the show. But essentially, it's like a mega corporation, but they're the pioneers that have like settled and created like their little office sort of compound on Mars, right? So it's like capitalism out of this world, literally, right? And he gets let go, and he's a graphic designer, and he also doesn't... I don't know the best way to equate it, but he wasn't picking up on a lot of social cues. And he also had a high level of like self-importance, like to the level that he would compare himself to like space engineers. I'm like, bruh, this is on you at this point.
Graphic designers are important.
And she had, no, but then he also had a girlfriend on Earth that was 10 out of 10 in the face. Really?
Yeah, there was a lot of aspects that didn't align with what we were seeing. And I think the main, like, we needed a Jeff Cooper to be a bit more realistic. You know, I think that would have made such a big difference.
You don't think it was too realistic? It was too banal? I was wanting some sort of big-titted He-Man adventure like Kenny from South Park.
Yeah, I see that. Even
big titties!
Yeah, I thought we'd get a Zon sort of... No, I understand everything that you're saying, and I get that. I just thought everything was there to have this be really funny and captivating, and it just feels like they missed a mark a bit where they had all the ingredients. I was like, okay, we've got this graphic designer who's just been fired on Mars, and then you could build pretty much anything out of that, but we kept on going back and forth between two bloody aspects of the show.
I don't know. Between this, Big Door Prize, Lucky Hank, there's a common recurring theme for the protagonists they choose to put on there. Even Shrinking as well, with the seagull, but the other seagull. Like, I'm just kind of getting sick of these sort of protagonists. I don't know. Personally, it wasn't for me. I guess you could say that I'm a hater and, you know, catch me on a good day and I'll probably still say the same thing. But it just wasn't my airplane reference jive. Yeah,
I just felt there was a missed opportunity there to make it a bit more grittier. But there's room, definitely. Hopefully, when they do season 2, they just go for it.
The unseasoned mashed potatoes are the unseasoned mashed potatoes, OT. Stop trying to change it.
They can buy salt.
Get that gap like the rest of us. All right, well, let's move on. We've got 2 more, OT. We've got a feature film, and we've also got an upcoming true crime thriller. Which one would you go to? Which one would you like to go to, and which one would you like to end on?
Oh, let's start with our Olsons.
Ooh, our Olsons and our Plemons make for a delicious spring tea. We are talking about Love and Death, Friends and Lovers. We are very excited. Since the start of April, we've been very excited to talk about this show.
We have.
This is the David E. Kelly. For those that are learned and for those that are in the know, we're talking about Boston Legal.
And everything law that you can imagine has been programmed. Like, from The Practice, Ali McBeal, Boston Legal, you name it, he's done it.
Well, there you go, friends and lovers. Directed by Leslie Linka Glatter. In regards to stars, Elizabeth Olsen. I think, I'm pretty sure, friends and lovers, people have already made jokes about this being crossed over in the Wonderverse. Jesse Plemons. He's going on the list of my beautiful people that would probably be really great to be with, like OT and Paul Dano.
Wow.
Lily Rabe, Patrick Fugit, Kia Gilchrist. Go and check out our Atypical episode, Friends and Lovers. Elizabeth Marvel, you would have noticed from the other credits previously. Tom Pelfrey, as well as Kristen Ritter. You're fooling nobody. We can see the black hair even over that wig.
Yeah, I don't know where that red hair came from, man.
To be fair, her black hair gives her a very modern, like 2000 onwards sort of look. So I get that they needed to change the wig, but maybe it's not the wig.
Yeah, it's not the wig.
We're not even talking about talents. We're just talking about the wig.
But wow, what can I say about this? It was very well done. I think in Olsen and Plemons, you get really good leads. Even Lily Rabe, man, she's amazing.
Wow.
It's quite entertaining. It's gripping. You'll find yourself wanting to binge a lot of it. It's not a sit and done. You'd want to complete the whole series in a go.
Which we did, yeah.
Which we did. And I think a lot of the things that I came towards the end of it was you sort of forget that it's based on real life.
Yeah.
On true events.
Yeah.
And once that aspect comes back, or at least I thought about it, I was like, this feels a bit weird, right? So a lot of you who are familiar with the story, you know how it goes. For those who are not, I will not spoil it, but I'll just say that at the end of the show, regardless of how it was presented, I just felt that they it was up to her to misrepresent a lot of the things.
Okay. I'm picking up what you're putting down, OT.
Right?
So my general sort of impressions for Love and Death is and we even recently in Welcome to Chippendales, I talked about how I don't really care for the genre of true crime. It kind of feeds into our hedonistic, salacious sort of parts of us that stop seeing humans and we just want to get the goods, and not even in a Martin Short only murders in the building sort of way. It's not done in a QT way, So I was trepidatious about the true crime nature of this show. However, I found myself wanting to devour the whole series. There were absolutely moments where I felt may have deviated from potentially what reality was. However, as an overall watching experience, it was very satisfying.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. I think you wouldn't fault the performances or anything like that,
never.
because it's done quite brilliantly. They're directing as well. At the end of it, with shows like this, the story is the anchor.
Yeah.
And we have to stay true to that. And I think how a lot of it that was portrayed and how I was left feeling, well, there was a disconnect. Because I felt that knowing everything that happened and everything that transpired and how it was presented, it felt geared towards like pretty women, woohoo! Everyone else fuck out.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree with that. What I will say though is, there was recently a show that came out called Candy with Jessica Biel. I believe we made it through the first episode. Screeners or not, we gobbled this whole season, Love and Death, up. So even in comparison to the same subject matter, I personally, and I also talked about it and She Said as well, I personally liked the way that the brutality was conveyed without the full violence being shown. To me, that's very important. Like in a world where, OT, you no longer get the censor bars anymore. You get the full view of everything, right? It's good to know that, especially if we're talking about a true story, that there is some care that still goes into the production of the making of a show like this.
Yeah, and they did adhere to that care. That was good to see.
Yeah.
But yeah, like at the end of the day, it's a really entertaining show.
Yeah.
Despite the subject matter, because you get to see how the characters intermingle and how it all plays out. I think the dynamic between the two was really good. We get a lot of good performances from this.
Yeah. Oh, we love it, friends and lovers. It will be coming out very soon, and it will be released on a weekly sort of basis, but definitely hit us up in the DMs, friends and lovers. And there's some tasty Plemons Olsen action going on. Thanks to Binge for the screeners on Love and Death. Ooh, are you ready to get to the end, OT? This is Evil Dead Rise. Thank you to Warner Brothers as well as Universal for inviting us to the preview screening. I believe Morgan Davies was also there as well. It was pretty cool. I think that was the first time that we've been to a preview screening where they had like a little Q&A at the start. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was good to see.
We also got a Sydney-specific message from the director Lee Cronin, which was very cool. In regards to cast, we have Lily Sutherland, Alyssa Sutherland, who are both Australia and also from Queensland, Gabrielle Eccles, as well as Neil Fisher, as well as
Mana,
our Jaden Daniels. I see why you always mention the random black character now. Even if they're not like the main, I see why you do it.
The stick on ya.
Well, before we go into our general thoughts and feelings about Evil Dead Rise, I think it's worth just exploring the Evil Dead franchise. right? A couple of months ago, I think just for fun, we started watching Evil Dead 1, Evil Dead 2, just for reasons. We thought we'll take a break until maybe Halloween. And unfortunately, we didn't get time to get to the other two films before Evil Dead Rise. And you've also watched Ash vs. Dead?
Yeah, Ash versus Evil Dead, yep.
See, terrible. Shout outs to Tim from Popcorn Podcast with Lee and Tim, because I remember after we were discussing Evil Dead Rise, I was like, oh yeah, lots of homage, and I made a completely terrible non-reference and you both corrected me and I both wanted to fight you. But let's talk about our general sort of feelings with the franchise, OT.
It's a franchise full of hijinks and a level of not taking itself too seriously that is admirable.
Okay.
It's one of those franchises that if you grew up on it, you think of it so fondly. I didn't know how it would age until we watched it again recently together.
Yeah.
And I was still impressed. It held its quality, and that was quite impressive to see. So I was very eager to see what they'll do with Evil Dead Rise. My love for Bruce Campbell as Ash, knows no bounds. So I was trepidatious, I didn't know what to expect, but wow, I was not disappointed. I felt I had fun with this. I went in with very little expectations, but I was completely blown away.
Oh, wow. Okay. So my general sort of thoughts, watching Evil Dead 1, like the OG Sam Raimi Evil Dead, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the earnestness in filmmaking, the love for film. A lot of the charm was put into the filmmaking of the first Evil Dead. Mm-hmm. I loved it. I love the innovation. It was a bit hokey where you saw, the way they did the special effects and that sort of thing. But to me, it added to the film.
It's the character.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, this is what we're here to do, budget or otherwise, this is the film we're making. And you're right. There was a lot of campiness. I was all for the twig tie,
Oh, we love them vines.
Yeah, we got some cable tie later on in Evil Dead Rise.
Love of vines.
Mm-hmm. But I was absolutely here for what was distilled into the charm of Evil Dead. I really enjoyed it. A lot of our friends and lovers, and also just generally, people talk to Evil Dead 2 being the better of the two. I can see why people say that, but I feel like a lot of it, not even the fact that you've watched the first one, but there was a lot of that sort of rustic filmmaking magic that got lost in 2, I think.
I'm with you.
There was a lot of the scenes that had, they already did similar beats and then they just did the same scenes with those beats.
And they lost something in that,
Oh, yeah.
It didn't feel as special.
No. So I guess from that point of view, we're like, okay, even watching the trailer for Army of Darkness, we're okay, this is a tonal shift. Let's take a break. So, even coming into Evil Dead Rise, I would say, friends and lovers, if you've never watched the Evil Dead films, or if you have, but mostly for people that haven't, don't let that deter you, because to me, it feels, with Evil Dead Rise, it finds a way to pay homage to not only the original IP, but also to other horror classics, as well as find its own footing. And there's a lot of, scenes that people will talk about in this film. I don't necessarily want to talk about in too much detail because that is part of the magic of Nicole Kidman's cinema.
Oh, the theater.
Just to go there and enjoy it. I would say that this film is more gory than it is scary. I wasn't necessarily scared. I think that was a great choice as well. I did wish that we had, I don't know, and I think this is me because I think I'm a campy horror gal because my favorite is Seed of Chucky. You know what I mean? That's where I am, and I know that's not what this film was, but I do wish that it found its levity, because a lot of the levity were just through lines of really vulgar dialogue, which, should be my MO, but it was the only way it was finding its levity, and I'm like, come on.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh, for sure. We definitely lost a bit of campiness in this. It's far from campy, actually. It is not.
Does it need to be?
It doesn't need to be, but knowing the franchise, you feel like I expected a level of it.
Yeah.
But when we were met with a sort of straight on sort of approach, I was like, okay, I'm in for it, you know, and there is definitely a bit more gory than what I expected. But I think the payoff for me came towards the final act of the movie, where I felt everything just came together quite nicely. And I almost just stood up and shouted in the cinema. I was like, yeah! So
show your tits! 2 points if you get that horror reference, friends.
For sure. But wow, like, I understand all that, but I think the expectations of it to be, or to even mimic the Evil Dead that we're used to is wrong, and I appreciate the direction that they took.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, I think I'm just a campy horror gal. But even that aside, I really like the way that they incorporated the lore, you know, even the book as well. But even then, to me, that was always the most interesting sort of part, which again also kind of fell to the wayside in Evil Dead 2. Maybe that's also why as well. They hammed it up and then they kind of removed a bit of the, like, they stopped saying native and indigenous. But anyway, I was kind of hoping, but that was just more for me because I just thought it was interesting. Something that I would also like to point out as well that I really enjoy about, maybe not the franchise, but at least from what I've seen, is I love how Evil Dead establishes this is fucking it. Because, like, if you think about, you know, not going into detail for Evil Dead Rise, but, you know, they're in an apartment, right? But they kind of cut out all points of entry to make it clear that this is where the movie's happening. You can't just divergent yourself out of this situation. You can't just Patronus your way out of the situation. This is the set.
Theo
right?
James would have tried, though.
Theo James be trying. You do be trying. But also, like, even the original Evil Dead, if we call back to that, you know, the bridge is like broken and the twig tie is going to tickle you ever so nicely. Like, it establishes there's no way out of this. This is the story and this is where we're going to stay. Because, you know, when you like start watching stuff, you're like, oh, why don't you do this? Why don't you try that? Why don't you do this? You know, I like how it makes it very clear these motherfuckers aren't getting out. They're just stuck there.
Yeah, a perfect combination for just creating a tense environment where you'd feel that anything could happen.
Oh, absolutely. Is this a safe space, OT?
Always is.
Okay, because I have two things that I want to say about Evil Dead Rise. The first one is this a white people thing? Because there were a lot of characters, and mostly all of them were white, that kept going to investigate shit.
Yeah, I guess that's why they made them white.
but there were so many, because personally, and there were brown people in this film, and we'll get to that, but personally, if I'm going to be nommed by a fucking demon, I'm not going to look to see 20 seconds ahead that you're going to come and nom me. I don't need to know that. If you're going to come and get me, come and get me.
I ain't coming for you.
The second thing that I wanted to say, and we're not going to get into spoilers. However, love Jaden Daniels. Friends and lovers, we do have a head high episode. Please go and check it out. It's unfortunate that the show is not continuing, but please go and check it out. As soon as I saw our brother, I was like, I leaned over to you and I was like, you know what time it is. I don't know. Maybe I was having a hard day, or maybe I'm just sitting here seeing all of this curious nonsense white people, and I'm like, how are you going to do my people like that? I'm sure there's no personal feelings from Lee Cronin, but I'm like, for fuck's sake, man.
Yeah, well, it was inevitable, wasn't it? Yeah, it was wild, but it was good to see Mana showing his stuff out there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was nice to, because you never know what you're going to get in a screening. And I really enjoyed Evil Dead Rise.
Oh, that's good. That's good. It's definitely worth going out in the cinema for this. I think it adds to the experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
But wow, I think it was a valiant effort in rekindling the Evil Dead franchise. And I, for one, can't wait to watch it on streaming once it's available.
Nice. Ooh. So, thank you, friends and lovers, for joining us another week in the For Your Reference household. In way of things we're watching that we'll be covering soon, Succession is almost finishing up. Perry Mason has just finished, so we'll be covering that as well. Also, on Future Reference Max's, look out for Pete Davidson's butt kiss. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Up.
You better put your thumbs up. Infinity Pool, as well as Ivan Sen's Limbo. If you would like to see OT and I survive in a horror franchise, on Twitter and Instagram, we're at ForYourRefPod.
Write us an email at hello@frpodcast.com.
We're also on Stream the Olsons and the Plemons podcast if you'd like to leave a rating and review. And we'll see you guys next week.
See ya.
Bye.